Hello, this is Dr. Janice Love, and thank you for visiting my YouTube channel. Please don't forget to subscribe. Have you ever started something, whether it's a project, whether it's your dream, whether it is simply an assignment, yet you found yourself quitting? Maybe you started again and found yourself giving up hope, maybe procrastinating, just ultimately not accomplishing your goal. Well, stay tuned. I want you to meet my guest tonight, Tracy Crenshaw, who found herself starting and stopping again. And she finally got to the point where she finished what she started. So join me. All right. So let's see. We are here for asking for a sister friend, and we stream every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Central Time. And we are always here having a conversation with an expert who is doing wonderful things to help women. And tonight, we are here talking about finish what you started. Now, let me tell you a little bit about my wonderful guest. She has a love for learning and for teaching. And she is a graduate of North Carolina Wesleyan College with a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration. And she has an MBA as well. She is the founder of Begin Again Literacy Ministry, which is a nonprofit organization which helps empower adults to overcome educational challenges with basic literacy skills. She is the co founder, along with her husband, Pastor Overseer Michael Crenshaw, of the Tabernacle of Kingdom Ministries in Wilson, North Carolina. But she lives in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and I just could learn some things about her. She's not far from my son, so next time I come that way, I am going to visit. So she is also the director of existing industries and workforce development for an organization called Carolina's Gateway Partnership. So I can go on and on about the wonderful things that she is doing and has done. But I want to welcome to the stage, everyone, Miss Tracy Crenshaw. Welcome, Tracy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Love, for having me. It's a privilege and an honor to be able to come tonight and speak about the topic of beginning again and finishing what you started.
Yeah, so especially for women, we go through this thing where we are beginning and we start and then we end. We we want to do something, right? But we don't always do that. So I can't wait to hear your story. But I had put out there that you started out learning and teaching. In fact, you started with your dolls when you're little. Tell me
I
about that.
So, because my birthday falls late, it's in December, I skipped kindergarten. I didn't go to kindergarten. So, that year that I should have been going to kindergarten, I stayed with my grandparents and while my mother worked. And so, uh, it was never a day that went by that I didn't have my two doll babies and a stuffed teddy bear. And can't remember what the other stuffed animal was on the couch, on their couch in their living room. And that was my classroom. At 5 years old, I don't know, it was, I guess, a God given calling at the time. I didn't know that's what it was, but I just thoroughly enjoyed having class because I wanted to go to school like my other sisters, but I wasn't able to. So I just created a classroom and
I love it.
they were my students. And I did that up until I started first grade. And when I started going to school, I just fell in love with it. I loved learning. I loved reading. I just loved being in school.
I love it. I bet your grandparents wish they had telephones back then so they could have recorded you fussing at them little dolls.
Yes. Because during those sessions, some of those sessions I would be teaching. My grandfather was an avid lover of wrestling. So wrestling would be
Mhm.
on while I'm trying to teach class, and I would be interrupting his wrestling sessions.
My goodness. All right. So let's talk about this journey that you started off. So when you graduated high school, you had some dreams in mind. What dream did you have in mind?
I did, like I said, because I had a love for learning early on, I wanted to be a teacher. That's what I
Mhm.
aspired to be. But by the time I got to graduate in high school and going to college, I looked at it from an economic standpoint and said, there's no
Mhm.
money in teaching. So I'm not going to teach. I'm going to go into the corporate world. And so I enrolled in the local college where I was from, Lenore Ryan College. At the time, it's now Lenore Ryan University. And I went a whole semester. And at the
Mm.
time, I was dating my high school sweetheart. And so
Mhm.
he had asked me to marry him. And I said, okay. I was in love, young, didn't really understand that, but I thought I could be married and go to school and still pursue my dreams. Well, we as adults know that once you get married, life starts lifing. And
Mhm.
so I came out of college, I dropped out, but I still thought I could still go to like the community college. I'll go to community
Mhm.
college. I can work, I can be a wife, I could do that. Well, I joined, enrolled in my local community college there, went about 3 semesters there, and we needed we needed we needed to survive more than I needed to go to school, pay bills, and make a living.
Uh-huh.
So I dropped out again. So it was probably 3 or 4 years later. I said, okay, I'm going to enroll back. I'm going to finish. Changed degrees, changed degree. What's the word I'm looking for?
Directions,
Majors.
colleges.
Yeah,
Okay,
changed different
majors. Okay.
majors. Yeah, 2 or 3 different times. So that made me need to start back over again because I changed my major. Some of the classes I took in my other majors didn't carry over, so it was an endless cycle of starting over again because I wasn't um, sure about what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And
Okay.
being married, I didn't get the support of
Mhm.
my first husband that I needed to carry on. So when I wanted to quit it, he was like, "Okay, that's fine. We need to do this and this and that." Um, 3 or 4 more years later, I go back. I'm still pushing. I'm still pressing um, because I felt like part of me had failed
Mm.
as a woman,
Mhm.
as my mother's daughter. She had high expectations of all her children,
Mhm.
and I somehow felt like a failure because I can't complete this. It's my dream
Mm.
that I get this bachelor's, but I keep stopping and I keep starting.
Wow, let's go back
Yes,
to when, so many times with women, oftentimes we give up our dream for love. So
absolutely.
we say, okay, um, because I know that I always wanted to be married. I knew that I
Mhm,
always wanted to be married. And so when the opportunity comes along and when you are in that love stage, that blind love kind of
mhm.
stage, then we think that, okay, now that I got this love thing taken care of, now I can take care of my own stuff. But it often doesn't turn out that way, especially if, again, you have to live. And especially if the husband has desires or he needs to go to school or whatever to pursue his dreams, oftentimes we give up our dreams for them,
We did, and I
right?
did that. It wasn't just his dream, but it was just to build a better household for the two of us.
Right.
Um, because we wanted more in life, we wanted to have more in life, um, but we learned that we can't live above our means, and we get into that mindset of we can live like the Joneses, but we have to sacrifice. There's a sacrifice that has to be made in order to try and live up to that status quo. And for me, that was giving up my education at that time.
Mhm. Mhm. But
Yeah.
there's nothing like being a broke newlywed, right? You have an apartment that has some of your leftover furniture from your bedroom at home. Or
Yeah.
the for me, it was my black and white television that was sitting on top of a basket, right? Because I couldn't even afford the furniture. So, yes,
Exactly.
it's nothing worse than feeling like you're not going anywhere and you have all these dreams as a couple. So you quit school. And
Yeah.
again, so how did you feel about doing that? Did you feel frustrated about having to quit school?
Frustrated, and I felt defeated.
Okay.
I felt defeated. Like, this is something you really want to do, but you're not sticking to it. You're not
Mhm.
taking the necessary steps to finish this course, to get over this hurdle. Um, and like I said, it was several years. I did this off and on, and unfortunately, my first husband, he died of suicide.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
and I was 28. I was 28. He was 30 at the time. So that was a critical part of my life that I didn't think about anything else of
Mm.
pursuing a dream. That was the furthest thing from my mind. Healing from that grief and that devastation. Um, but later on, 4 or 5 years went by, and I said, okay, it's time to start again. So I
Mhm.
began again. I enrolled back into my local community college, went another year, and fell in love again. And then me and second husband, we married, and I became pregnant with twin boys. So school was definitely not a priority at that time.
I have to my hat's off to you because it's enough to have one at a time, but to turn around and have twins and they're boys, right? They're boys.
Correct, two boys, yes.
I just cannot imagine because first you're dealing with just being a wife. Then you're dealing with again, you're dealing with grief and you're dealing with so many other emotions. I can't
Hmm.
even imagine the emotions that you dealt with. But then now you become a mother. So now it's like, I'm surely not gonna start doing all this when I'm trying to mother because with two at the same time.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
And we had this conversation right before we came on that we both are in blended families with
Hmm.
a total of 8 children.
Correct.
So when you and your husband married, uh, did he already bring children into the marriage?
Well, actually, this was my second marriage, and
Okay.
yes, he had children. So yes,
Okay.
I was, affiliated with another blended family.
Hmm.
He had three children. So
Okay.
not only was I a mother to my boys, but you bring his children in. So now there's five children, and they were young at the time.
Mm.
So education was not even on the radar at that time for several years because I was making sure that my children were taken care of first, that
Hmm.
their educational needs were met, and they were doing what they needed to do to finish school. And so mine went on the back burner. So
Hmm. Always. That's what
yes.
always happens to women. Again, sometimes we can fight through it, but again, the way I look at it, and just from knowing your story, God's timing is everything when it came to this, and it was almost like He had to show you that I'm going to be the one to help you do this. So
Absolutely.
let's fast forward. So
Okay.
so to the time where
So
did you just make up in your mind that I'm going to do this? How did you get to that stage where you finally got in school and kept going?
Well, it was in 2009, 2008, the latter part of 2008. I'd been divorced for about 2 years. And like you, I always knew that I was meant to be a wife. Um,
Hmm.
and I think through God's permissive will, I chose um, wrong. I can
Okay. Yeah.
say
Oh, I understand.
and I just said, Lord, I know this is your will, that I am to be a wife to whomever you want me to
Mhm.
be a wife too, and only you will have to do it this time. I'm not picking no more.
Mhm.
So he did, and my current husband now, Michael, Bishop Michael Crenshaw, he found me in 2008. And so into the latter part in September of 2009, we married. And I moved from my hometown, had never lived anywhere else but a small town in Newton, North Carolina, and moved to Rocky Mount in 2009, me and my boys. And he became our pillar, if I could say that. He
Mhm.
became the
Mhm.
structure that we needed, that I needed in my life to finally say, okay, now it's time. It's time to work on Tracy.
Mhm.
My apostle at the time, she was speaking and teaching on the story of Joseph in Genesis, and not to let your dreams die. And when she was
Mm.
teaching on that, it just stirred something up in me and said, okay, this time I'm going to finish what I've started. So I enlisted in the local community college again, here where I live at now. But this time, a year and a half later, I had finished and got my associates. And when I walked across that stage, I was so excited. I was so elated and said, I finally did it. I finally finished what I had always dreamed of doing. But then the Lord reminded me and said, no, that wasn't what your dream was. Your dream was to obtain your bachelor's. This is a stepping stone. And so I went back and I enrolled right back again into the local college here at North Carolina Wesleyan. And 18 months later, I had got my bachelor's. And at that
Mhm.
time, I said, I've done it. I, I've done it, Lord. I have finished it took me 25 years from the time I
Mm.
started to the time I finished, but I finished. And it was during that year of 2016, 2015, my husband and I, we'd begun our ministry, the
Mhm.
Tabernacle of the Kingdom Ministries. And um, he had been teaching, and the couple of the women in the ministry, I noticed, could not read very well and were shy
Mm.
about when, we would ask if you'd like to read the scripture or participate in the service. They would kind of shun back. And talking with the bishop and I was concerned. We were concerned about that. And I
Mhm.
said, how would you feel if I introduced or started like a GED prep class? Because they had expressed that they had not finished high school. And he said, babe, I think that's a wonderful idea. Let's go for it. And I mentioned in service that I would start a GED prep class with those who did not graduate. If you like to go back and get your high school diploma, I'm going to help you. And
Mm.
that's where it started. In 2018, we began
Wow. So you went full circle
full
from
circle.
teaching them the doll babies on the couch to finally achieving your own goals, and then recognizing that because of what God had the path and the journey he had taken you on, it led right to helping somebody else finish what they started.
Yes,
What a blessing.
it is, and I look back on my life and how it started at 5, and the
Mhm.
calling of teaching was planted then. And even when I would run away from it, or veer left instead of going right, he was still pulling me back into the education field in one way or the other, whether it be teaching vacation Bible school every year at my
Mhm.
church. Or when we moved here and I began to work in the ministry before we branched off in my headquarters. I just assumed I would be in administration because that's what I had done. But the apostle, as wise as she is, she must have seen the calling too, because she placed me in the education department. I didn't work in administration.
Wow.
For my church, I worked in the education department there. And so
Wow.
I look back over the cycle of my life and see that um, it is a Philippians 1:6. For he who has
Mhm.
begun a good work in us shall complete it to the coming of the day of Jesus Christ. And I see that working, how he worked that through me. And that's the foundation of my foundation, that this calling that he has placed on my life to help those who want to begin again but don't know how. Um, and so in 2018, we began, and then of course, COVID hit in 2020.
Mm.
So, because we were meeting at our local library, they shut that down. So, we took a year off. I took a year off from teaching them. And he told me then, I need you to go back to school one more time. And I said, I don't want to go back. I'm done. I don't want to do that, Lord. But I did. That's when I went and enrolled and went back and got my bachelor's. And in 2021, when I graduated, he then said, "It's done. You're finished. And this is
Yes.
what I want you to do next. I need you to go and help people begin again and finish what they've started."
Wow, that our stories are so similar because again, when I look back over my life and think about, how frustrated I was with myself for
Hmm.
not stepping out on faith and doing something, but now I wouldn't have it any other way because my favorite scripture, is Romans 8:28, because
That's
all the
my,
things have
that's my
worked
life
together
scripture
for
too.
good,
Hmm.
not just for me, but again, the women that I am called to serve. So I love how you didn't let that frustration, that feeling like a failure, keep you from doing that, and realizing that you were trying to do it all on your own,
Right.
right? And instead of letting God do it for you, but once He did that, He showed you, I got a whole lot more for you to do than just
Absolutely.
1 degree. So I
Hmm.
love that. So when we think about some of the tools that Satan uses really to hold us back, whether it's procrastination or not being able to focus or what would you say to a woman who has feels like she's stuck, that she has a vision, a dream for her life, but she's stuck? What would you say to her?
I would say to her to not give up. Life is going to throw us all sorts of challenges, obstacles, but even in trying to maneuver and get around them, don't lose hope on the dream. Don't lose the dream. Don't let the dream die. It may fizzle, it may sizzle. Don't let it die. And I think having that glimmer of hope, um, that little seed of faith, will still continue to help you to get there. You may not get there as quickly as you want, but don't give up. I tell my students, as long as you're breathing, God has still got a story for you. He's still working on your story. You're not
Oh
done yet.
yeah.
It doesn't matter
Oh
if you're
yeah.
16 or you're 61. As long as you're breathing, He's not done with you yet. So I would encourage them not to give up.
So many times I hear from women they are not going to go back to school because they're too old, or they're not sure that that's going to get them where they want to go. So what would you say to a woman who says, I'm too old to go back to school?
I have a lady who is 63 years old. And most of my students are older women,
Hmm.
probably 50 or older. And I tell them it's never too late. Again, as long as you're breathing, God still has a purpose for you. You have not fulfilled everything that God has called you to be. And it's never too late. Whether you dropped out at the fifth grade or you dropped out at the 11th grade. No matter what circumstances caused you not to finish, it's not too late. You can still begin again and finish.
Wow, I love it. You've had a graduate. So tell me how the graduation went for your first graduate out of your program.
It was wonderful. She was a young lady, 19 years old, who had dropped out at eighth grade. And was very timid. She was bullied. And I think just because she was shy and timid,
Mhm.
thank God that I was able to mentor her and constantly encourage her, support her, lift her up when she wanted to quit. And I said, no, we're going to finish this. We're going to finish this. You're going to get through this. And it took us a whole year and a half, but she finally finished, and we held the graduation ceremony, and she was so excited, and I was excited for her to know that her story again is she's starting a new chapter in her life,
Mhm.
and that what she thought was going to be her ending, it's not. It's a new beginning for her. And I just try to
Amen.
remind my students that even when life starts lifing and they start to slip.
Mhm.
I was sharing with my husband today that I sometimes get discouraged by that and said, Lord, you called me to this. They're not coming every week like we're supposed to. What do I need to do? And he's so lovingly reminded me, Tracy, it took you 25 years. So
Mhm.
you have to issue them that same type of grace that I have given you to finish, and keep encouraging them that they can and will finish. But you still have to give them the grace to know that it's a journey, because it's hard. Once you've
Mhm.
stopped, it's hard to pick up that ladder again, or that book again, because it can be intimidating.
I can imagine. Now we when we were talking actually before the show, you talked about the different types of illiteracy, and
Yes.
sometimes it's not just uh, not that they just can't read. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yes. Statistically, there are 773 million people in the world who are
Mhm.
illiterate, meaning that they've never been taught to read or write. But in
Mhm.
the United States, there are 32 million people who are functional illiterates. That means they've had some basic reading and writing skills,
Mhm.
but are below the basic literary standards. Like
Mhm.
they're kind of almost below a fifth grade level. So
Mhm.
that makes them functional illiterates. They can recognize signs. It's a matter of repetition, doing the same thing over and over again to where it becomes natural. But if you put that in written text, it would be hard for them to understand. So they can sign their name, but to go and fill out a whole full-fledged application, some can't do that because they can't read and understand the questions that people are asking them, or complete a whole sentence grammatically correct, because they don't know the proper grammar of how to form that sentence, but they know basic sight words that can help them get over that hump, um, to function in this world. And that's what
Mm.
I've learned and have seen in my students that I teach, that they're functional illiterates, because we have to go all the way back to the basics.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. I know some individuals in the older generations who maybe didn't have the opportunity to go to school. I know that even my mother-in-law only got to a certain grade, but boy,
Mhm,
she reads that Bible.
right. Yes.
She can read that Bible,
Yes.
and it's just a blessing. So we got to tell people about your program. So let's put up here how people can find you if they are interested in learning more about your program. So is it mostly just people in North Carolina that you're serving? Do you do any online
I
services
do.
or
I do
anything?
offer online classes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let me find this so we can show everybody your website. Okay, so your website is www.beganagainliteracy.org. So
Yes.
again, if you have people who are in your churches, if you know someone, a family member who could use this service, definitely write her website down. Again, www.beganagainliteracy.org. How did you come up with the title?
It was just the Lord gave me that. He said, I need you to help them to begin again, because that was my story. And I can relate to those who have stopped and started, and to know that me as a witness that you can finish. what you started. You just have to begin again.
I love it. So they can also find you on Facebook and on not LinkedIn. It's
Instagram.
what's it? Instagram. Yes, you can find her on Facebook and Instagram at Begin Again Literacy Ministry. And by all means, definitely contact her. Learn more about what she's doing. Now, this ministry kind of started in your through your church, right?
It did. It began. It was birthed in the church by those three women that I started teaching GED prep, and then the Lord said it's time to expand. And
I
with the
love it.
expansion, He allowed me to be sponsored through a collaborative of ECU, Eastern Carolina University, and
Mhm.
NC State University. So they are a sponsor to my ministry.
Wow. So your career has grown because you went through a series of promotions once you finished school. God placed this ministry in your heart. He gave you everything that you needed to get started, and you have just taken off. And you must be a busy lady now.
I am, but I love doing this. I thoroughly get excited when I get a new student that wants to enroll, and I just get off the ground running. I get excited to know that I'm helping someone become a better them and to be all that God has called them to be. That's my main mission in life, is to help you
Um,
get to where God has called you to be.
yes, and just like um, he did with Tracy, just like he did with me. If he has a good work that he has started in you, then he is going to finish it. So just
Absolutely.
just go along with the ride for the ride. Trust God. Do your part because again, it's not easy. Do your part, and then
Mhm.
God will ultimately give you the victory. I love it. I love it. Tracy, I am so excited that we had this conversation. We've been knowing each other for several years,
Yes.
and I knew about what you were doing. Each time I saw you out there standing on your platform, I just got so excited. And so I was like, I have got to have Tracy on the show. So each time I have the show, I quote this scripture from Proverbs 27:17. Good News Translation. It says, people learn from one another just as iron sharpens iron. And you have definitely sharpened my iron as well as encouraging me to 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 find those who, because I didn't know illiteracy was such a huge problem and challenge, and especially for women. So I am. We're going to share your information again because we want people to know about this and be able to find you again, whether it is because they know somebody, or again they can learn from what you're doing to help individuals who are dealing with illiteracy. All right. So once again, thank you, thank
Thank
you,
you.
thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Love, so much for having me on here and allowing me to share my story and to put my nonprofit out there. That's what I'm here for. I'm here for that.
Yes. And God is definitely going to bless your ministry, and we are going to continue to stay in touch. Now, once I have everything downloaded and everything, I'm also going to be adding you to our listserv. Everyone, in case you didn't know, I have a Pearls Perfected Institute listserv that lists everybody who has appeared on my show. So we're going to have you there. So if anybody's looking for you, they can find you as well as they can refer back to the replay. So once again, thank you so much
Thank you
for
so
being my
much
guest
for having me.
today.
Thank
And I look forward to staying in touch. And in
you.
fact, I'm going to make sure the next time I come to North Carolina, we're gonna have to have lunch or coffee or something.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Can't wait.
all right. So, everyone, thank you for joining me today. If you have any questions, we have lots of good comments, lots of friends that we both know are out here because you've been a part of my Pastor's Wives ministry,
Mhm.
and you're on that. You took that stand on your own platform and you ran with it. So I love it. So thank you again, and we'll go ahead and get out of here. And once again, this is Dr. Janice Our Love with Pearls Perfected Institute. And I invite you to join me every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Central Time for Asking for a Sister Friend.